What's up, party people? It's KeysDAN with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in a living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability, get a free price quote, and maybe you could have me at your next event. You know I like to party with the people. The people need to be entertained. Are you not entertained? Let me entertain you. Make your next thing a big one. Speaking of entertainment, today on the program, I have James Michels. James Michels out there in Michigan. He's an author, creator of fantastic stories, crime and suspense. Ooh, oh my goodness. He's got some books out there. I'll tell you about them right now. Ice Rising, The Ballad of Carlo, Life's Dark Corners, Icebox, Ice Rain. Now, some of the ice ones have through characters. Yeah, it's kind of a story that kind of goes within a story. It's kind of a world building. Yeah, pretty excited to learn a little bit more about James Michels. So stick around in the next few minutes. This week's shows. Let's see. Oh, I have 2 public shows. Count them, 2. My usual Friday night gig at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. The Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. Yes, I said karaoke. You're the stars of the show at the Rab. They got a full bar, kitchen's open, good food, good people, good drinks. And then they have a pool, 10 pool tables, 10 diamond style pool tables. In fact, on Friday nights, they have a pool tournament. So you want to try your hand at playing pool and possibly make some money while you're doing it? I encourage you to check out the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. Friday night, I'm there from 8 p.m. until 12:30 in the a.m. Get there early, stay late. Heck, lock the doors, and we'll make sure, that you drink responsibly, put you in an Uber, send you on your merry way. Oh my goodness, good people. Oh, always a good time at the Rab. And then on Saturday, last week I was at the Choctaw VFW and I got called back. Hey, usually I've been doing the Choctaw VFW only once a month, and this month I'll be doing it twice. So come on out to the Choctaw VFW for Saturday night. For the Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. They got a big giant dance floor. They got a bar. They got some food. They got pool tables. They got dartboards. It's a good time. Choctaw VFW, Choctaw, Arkansas on Saturday night from 8 p.m. until 12:30 in the a.m. Usually I'm there 7 o'clock set up, but getting set up. One time I showed up about 6:30 and they were like, are you okay? Is everything all right? Because usually I'm there way too early and I stay late because Choctaw VFW, it's so good. So I have 2 public shows and you're invited. Come on out. The Rab on Friday night and the Choctaw VFW on Saturday. The Rab in Conway, Arkansas, Choctaw VFW, Choctaw, Arkansas. All right, that's enough intro and shameless plugging. Let's get into it with James Michels. I got him on Skype. So if you're listening to the audio version of this, I encourage you to check out the video version on my YouTube page, youtube.com/user/KeysDAN. Skyping James Michels now.
Where are you at?
Where am I at? I'm in Conway, Arkansas. Originally from Miami, the Florida Keys. KeysDAN came from there. What's up, my man? Look at that face on my screen. That's a good-looking dude right there. James.
Thank you. I'm actually going with a new look.
James Michels in the house. My wife, she doesn't like it when I cut my hair too short. I'm one of those that I have hair. My little brother, bald, almost completely bald. My grandfather, bald, almost completely bald. But my dad, full head of hair till the day he died. Grandpa, full head of hair. It's funny how genetics works that way, but it does. It does.
Yeah.
James Michels in the house, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, buddy. How you doing?
Oh, I'm super fantastic. So excited to be talking to you. Author. Is that in reference to you? Author. Or is that like what you say at a show when you're at a show and you want them to do an encore. Is there a double meaning to that? You're a wordsmith. You probably have that in your back pocket without having to Google it, without having to Bing it. Is Bing still a thing? Yahoo? I don't know. Give the people an idea of who you are, James Michels.
Well, yeah, pleasure. So, hi, everybody. My name is James Michels, and I am an author. And that is it feels so good to say that. So, I've been writing for 5 years. I have published 5 books, all of them crime thriller. And I'm working on my 6th one as we speak. But of course, I know a lot of people are wondering, how do people get into writing? Well, it just depends on the writer. I'm actually somewhat of a late bloomer myself. I've always been an avid reader, but I know a lot of writers kind of like to talk about how they kind of came out the womb writing short stories, and they were 18, 19, they finally decided to take it seriously, and they went to college and they became writers. That did not happen for me. I actually didn't even finish college. I've always been interested in the criminal justice area, so I was pursuing that, and then I took a job within the criminal justice background of my state, and I kind of reached a point where I knew I was going to plateau with that job. I found a comfortable spot. I was waiting to put my time in to get to a better shift, because around that time also I got married and I was having a family. So I said to myself, what's something I can do to build myself up? Because I really don't see myself kind of moving up in my job. What am I going to do? Well, I'll just kind of challenge myself. I'll get back into lifting weights. I haven't done that yet. That's still on the list. I'll learn a new language. You know what? I'll write a book. I love reading. I'm going to write my very own book. And so I start writing. I go on my computer and I start writing chapter 1. And I kind of have an idea of where it's going to go. And halfway through me writing my first book, I realized, wow, this is going to be very long. What I was going to try and make the book about, I'm already like 150 pages in. It's not even there yet. So I said, oh, wow, I have a series here. So it's okay. I'm going to finish this book, end it at a cliffhanger, and then I'm going to write the next book. I'm going to make a whole series of this. Well, see, what happened was, nearing the end of writing this book, just ideas started coming to my head for other different stories. And that's always kind of a common occurrence with me now, is when I'm like halfway through writing one book, the idea for the next one just starts burning a hole in my head. So I finished my first book. That's this one, Ice Rising. And I start working on the next one. And I sat there and I realized, dude, this is it for me. Like this is it. I mean, the day job's fine, but for me, this was something that I guess it was that part of me that I didn't really know if I had, which was that natural talent that I guess everybody has. Some of us find it, some of us don't. I found it. Like kind of a late bloomer. I found it at 25, but I jumped into it head on. And here I am 5 years later with 5 published books, and a 6th one on the way to be published next year.
James Michels, man, not a lot of people can write a book, let alone 5 books. But I'm looking, Ice Rising, first one right off the bat. And you said that 150 pages in, you are just building character. You're building a world. You have something in your head and you're putting it down pen to paper, or I guess it's keyboard to screen, if you will. But this guy, Alexander Lincoln, he shows up in your head. Boom. Was he on one of the case files? You said you were working with the fuzz. I mean, and that's a good way to get fodder. A good way to get inspiration is to work with the police. I was a firefighter for 10 years. So I know if I wanted to write something about firefighting, I probably could. I have no desire to write. I mean, every once in a while I have this little bug and says, hey, why don't you write something down? No, I got a microphone in front of my face. If somebody wants to transcribe all the words that come out of my mouth, then that would be the way to get a book out of me. But you take the time. You said what is the job that you do with the police? Your day job.
All right, so I actually I actually work with I'm with the Department of Corrections. I'm an officer, and I gotta say this because I've mentioned that because I still work there. Anything I say here is my own opinion. I am not a spokesman for the Department of Corrections. So, like I said, anything I say here is strictly my own opinion, not based off of them or whatever.
Yeah, it's tough to separate the two worlds. I have a day job, I have a night job. Every once in a while, those worlds will blend. Do you find the guys in Cell Block D, are they reading all about Alexander Lincoln and the great adventures, or are they reading the short stories? All right, the books that I grew up with, Stephen King, William Gibson, and Pat Frank, because I had to read that one for school, but I enjoyed it. But Stephen King and William Gibson, probably my two. Horror, and then like the cyberpunk. William Gibson's all about like Johnny Mnemonic and The Matrix, that kind of stuff. But you and one of my favorites was when Stephen King did Skeleton Crew, a bunch of little short stories. Is that what Life's Dark Corners is about? Is that 5 little short stories? I haven't had the pleasure of picking up one of your books, but they are all available on Amazon. I'll put all the links in the show notes for sure. But tell me about Life's Dark Corners.
So Life's Dark Corners is my 4th book. And as you said, it's a collection of 5 short stories. All of them crime thriller based. All of them totally different from each other. Different people, different walks of life, different kind of relations to the criminal world. Some of them are criminals. Some of them are civilians. And in a way, crime just affects them. But if we can go into detail a little bit, I can tell you kind of a brief like elevator pitch synopsis of each story. So the first story is, I almost forgot the order, Shallow Seeds. Tells the story of a man who is never really found his little niche in the criminal underworld. Then finally he does. He finds a little way to kind of move himself up a couple rungs in the ladder with disastrous results occurring, hence the term Shallow Seeds. Second story, total opposite. Tells the story, it's called The Soldier's Widow. Tells the story of a woman named Janine. She's an older woman. Her husband was a soldier. He's passed on, hence the title of The Soldier's Widow. She finds herself targeted by 2 hitmen. They storm into her house, but what they don't know is that her husband had left her his service weapons from the military, and he had taught her how to use them. So she gets the drop on them, and they retreat. And now the question is why are they after her? She has no enemies, nobody that's after her. Who'd she piss off? Third story was Wish Not to Remember. Tells the story of a man who wakes up with amnesia, and all he knows is that he's a photographer. He's got a brother who's a police sergeant, and there's a series of serial homicides going on in his city. He decides to kind of throw his own little hat into the ring, help his brother out. Maybe there's something that he knows, something he can find out. But he may find out that the answers hit a little closer to home than he cares to think. Fourth story, A Lyric for Brutus. That's actually an origin story for 2 other characters from my book, The Ballad of Johnny Carlo. In this story, Brutus he's returning home to New Orleans from up north after following the death of his mother. Reunites with his father. He finds out that there's a gang war going on in New Orleans. It's a battle between the new guard and the old guard. He meets the new guard, Frank Abraham, who's the other character, very prominent character in the Ballad of Johnny Carlo. And Brutus may find out that his destiny will change in a totally different path than he intended. Fifth story, Fantasy Best to Forget. This one's different. Tells the story of a young teenager named Dean who he just loves the violent video games, the violent movies, and he starts to think, how cool would it be if I could do something like that for real? So it follows his story, and he may find that the reality hits a little harder than he had intended. So a lot of surprises, a lot of unexpected twists and turns, a lot of changes for the characters. Very exciting book. It was amazing to write. It was definitely a challenge for me just because I'm used to writing full length stories, and now I'm writing short stories where I have to cut the fat, keep what's important, keep it reasonably short to still be called a short story. And I like to say that I accomplished it very well. Of course, I'll let you and all my other readers decide that for me.
Yeah, James Michels, what I'm thinking, I'm wondering about the process here with the short stories. This is something, maybe an idea that may be fleshed out a little bit later. You already said that one of the stories in that short story collection became the Ballad of Carlo, Johnny the Surgeon Carlo. I guess the hitman. Well, what's his place in the mafia? But that seed was planted in a short story. I don't know the difference between a short story and a full length. Is it pages? Is it words? Does your publisher say, give me 5,000 words on that? Give me 10,000 words on that. Give me 150 words by Friday or whatever. Is there a publisher involved? Are you your own publisher? Are you setting your own pace? But what's the difference between a short story and what becomes a short story and what becomes a full-length feature book?
We gotta say that I am my own publisher, independently published, and I gotta say my publisher is very hard on me. I mean, he rides me just constantly, and yeah, so he's really like over my shoulder, kind of the whole time I write. He's very difficult to deal with. I kind of feel bad for everybody that I don't know what that guy's problem is, but he pushes me, so I can't complain too much. I wrote 5 books because of him. So, all right. So, how long would I say that a short story goes? Maybe between, I would say, as long as a piece of string, as long as it has to be. Okay, no. If I were to really say like a pinpoint, say if it's like 150 pages, you probably have a full book. If it's below 150 pages, you might have a novella or a short story.
Yeah, because I mean, in the movie business, it's easy to say 90 minutes is a full-length feature film. That has been the industry standard. Anything less than that is a short story or a featurette. And if it's 5 to 10 minutes, that's a real short. That's a short. That's not even a short story. It's a short. But you mentioned earlier that when you were describing the 5 stories, that let me give you the elevator pitch. Do you want these optioned? Do you have the inclination that maybe some producer could find this story and make it into a feature film, make it into a series? Hey, Netflix, hello, come calling. James Michels is here.
That's actually a very great idea. I would love nothing more than to see my books go on the big screen or the small screen, whatever. If it's made into a movie or a TV show, because not only am I an avid reader, I'm also a movie buff. So to kind of see my books not only in physical reading form, but actually watch, like, if they were to put like Armand Assante playing the character, one of my characters, would just be like amazing. Wow, that's exactly how I thought that character would look.
Now, do you have that in your head? Do you have that in your head when you're writing these? When you're going, Johnny the Surgeon Carlo, I think he looks like Armand Assante. I think, yeah. Or do you have that vision in your head? Now, the other thing is when a writer writes, when you put a book out into the world, or you put a movie, or you put a song, it kind of, you let it go into the world like a child. And then that child is no longer yours. It becomes something else. It becomes part of someone else's story. If I read your book, it becomes a part of me, and I can interpret it how I see fit. Now, do you have the ability to let go of your story, to give it to a director and to give his vision, her vision of how your characters should act on a screen. Oh my goodness. I mean, we're delving into things that haven't happened, and hey, the chances are they won't, but please give James Michels some cash so he can live and he can keep making these books. But can you give your creative, give the reins away?
Well, could I still be kept on as a technical advisor?
Peter Benchley famously hated Jaws. Probably till the day he died. I don't know any different, but that's the story that has been told over and over, that he gave that story, or he sold that story, and Steven Spielberg made it into one of the greatest films about sharks. I still am afraid of water because of him. Thanks, Steven Spielberg. Sharks probably won't bite you, but thanks, Steven Spielberg. You made me afraid of the water. But Peter Benchley, the source material, hated that movie.
Well, I gotta say this. As long as they didn't change too much, like made drastic changes, like, hey, instead of having Johnny Carlo, we're gonna have Jack Smith be the character. Like, that's a totally different character. If it wasn't something too out the way like that, because what I've noticed is when you read something that's made into a movie or vice versa, and you see the subtle changes, in a way it's nice, because if you've already exposed yourself, like for example, like The Walking Dead. I read the graphic novels before the TV show came out. So when the TV show came out, I said, "Oh, I'm way ahead of the game here." But then everybody was telling me, "Yes, so and so died, and so lived." And I said, "Oh, they changed it." And the original creator might have a problem with that, but in a way, it kind of gives a different perspective, almost like an alternative story that's still based off of somebody's original idea. So in a way, it's like if let's say Steven Spielberg takes my story, let's say Steven Spielberg takes one of my books, or Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese, and they take one or all of my books, and they make little changes or whatever. I would say, okay. But I still served as that person's sort of inspiration to make those changes.
Yeah,
in a way, it's flattering.
Yeah,
because it's like, okay, I love this idea. I kind of see like in a way, what would I do if I had this kind of story, which they wouldn't be thinking about if it wasn't for the original creator. So as long as he didn't change too much.
Well, you mentioned the heavy hitters. These are directors that you probably trust. You know them as well as anyone can know them through their creativity from before. I mean, Alexander Lincoln. Tell me, who did you envision when you were writing Alexander Lincoln? Was there a movie actor? Or is that even in your mind while you're writing the books? Is this a story that is in your head? Because people can. All right. I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, and I listen to a lot of podcasts in general, but people can create bodies in their mind, but faces are hard to create for us, which is why some of the scary dreams that we have are usually faceless creatures, with big giant mouths and elongated features, because we're not good at making faces. But when you're say you're writing Alexander Lincoln, were you thinking of a certain person or maybe a faceless person?
So he's actually inspired by a few people that I've followed in the past, other authors, YouTubers, people who kind of went down that wrong path in crime and were actually very gifted with something. They used it for the wrong purposes, and they end up paying the price for it at the end. But then there's the redemption that comes back at the end of it. and then they're still out. And they kind of walked off, and they paid the price, but they walked off to the sunset, and they're still out there, still doing very well. But I'm fascinated with that story. So Alexander Lincoln to me represents the not potential that people don't use, but the potential that they misuse. Because Alexander, who throughout the series is known as Ice, that's his street name. He's gifted with business, got a very good business mind. So as soon as he jumps into the criminal realm, he's already making things happen. He's already collecting, pennies and nickels and turning them into dollars, gaining respect quick. People like to work with him. He works well. He's not as quick to make enemies if he can, instead make alliances that'll benefit him further along. It really kind of separates him from most other people on the street. And just by the time he's, a grown man, because it starts off, he starts off on the street when he's 14. By the time he's 18, he's already a prominent figure in the underworld. He's a lieutenant of this gang that's gaining influence and power, and people are really answering to him. It's even kind of making his own leader jealous, the one who brought him in, who everybody saw him as this great leader, and you kind of see the tension start to build between them because he's seeing, wow, like this new young kid who I brought in is, could he overshadow me? Because he take over one day? And that kind of gets the ball rolling for further along in the series.
Well,
so nobody in particular. I would say he's kind of a mass of a lot of different people.
Well, you have that set in with El Paraíso, Chicago, right? Illinois, somewhere in that area.
No, it's a fictional city in Northern California.
Oh, okay. Because when I was looking it up, I was going, is that Chicago? But okay, California. Where did you grow up?
I grew up, born and raised in Michigan.
Still in Michigan?
Still in Michigan.
You're still in Michigan. What do you know about California? What made you want to set your story out there on the West Side?
Create my own world, create my own rules. I didn't want to be kind of dictated to, well, here's the culture of this area. It's like, no, I will decide what the culture of that area is. I'll decide the climate. I'll just, I want to create a world that's a little bit kind of different from mine because, of course, this whole world is different from mine. And I want to create the own backstory of the city. I want to create its own regions, create its own different people, just what separates them, the class structure, everything. I just wanted to make, kind of make this all my own, on my own terms. I guess I was destined to be an independent writer because I really can't write how other people tell me to write or what to write about. I actually tried to go traditionally published, and after a year, it just didn't work out. So I decided to self-publish, and I think that was probably good because I'm a real big control freak when it comes to my creative process.
Oh, with this internet thing, most anybody can put out what they want. The SoundCloud DJ can put out whatever music he wants. The writer, YouTube, you can put out whatever movie you want. It's just trying to get that monetized, trying to get the return on your investment. You've put hours and hours of blood, sweat, and tears. Now, from what I'm listening, from what I'm gleaning, from what you're saying, are you more of a DC guy or a Marvel guy? This is why I'm asking. DC kind of made their own cities. It made their own Smallville. They made Gotham, which is obviously New York, and Smallville is obviously maybe a place in Kansas. It's been retconned over and over. Well, let's kind of base it in the real world because we kind of stabbed ourselves in the foot. Marvel is doing very well with their world building because it was kind of based on real cities, Hell's Kitchen, and cities that are New York and cities that are real, Los Angeles. But are you more of building your own world like DC, or building a story within our world like Marvel?
I'd like to say I actually jump back and forth. So my Ice series takes place in fictional areas I've totally made up. However, Life Star Corners and the Ballad of Johnny Carlo and my next book that I'm writing actually take place in real cities. Ballad of Johnny Carlo is the main setting is New Orleans, with New York City serving as a secondary setting. And then the book I'm working on, which is actually takes place before the events of the Ballad of Johnny Carlo, does take place mainly in New York City. So I definitely like to switch back and forth. The reason I went with a fictional city, Nice Rising, was because it was my very first book. And I just kind of wanted my first step into the writing world just be totally me before I kind of branch out and say, okay, let me move on to other areas of the country that are actually, real areas of the country, real cities, real settings that already exist, and kind of, all right, I've already done stuff based on my terms. Now let's see if I can kind of go by just, the real world and not go too crazy, like not have a blizzard in Arizona, not have a desert in Maine, if that makes sense. Now, when it comes to DC versus Marvel, that would depend on the characters, depends on the story. I love Batman. I think he's great. I think Gotham's great. I think his villains are great. Just wonderful. I love noir, so Batman is definitely up there for me. But I also like Marvel, I really don't know who I'd pick. Although I kind of find it a little odd that in Marvel, most of it takes place in that's amazing. Most of it takes place in New York City. It's like there's still crime in New York City. That's where all the heroes are based at. Spider-Man, Punisher, X-Men, the Avengers, Fantastic Four. Is like there's still crime in New York City.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, when you build your own world, and I want you to, do you think you're ever going to bring it home? Because to me, wouldn't you be better if you knew the actual streets that you were on? Will you bring it home to Michigan? Because what was it? Stephen King always had it in a fictional Salem or a fictional, and then what was it? John Hughes had Shermer, Illinois, but really that was the street he lived on. But I understand the fictionalization, but he's still writing about the places that he grew up in, the places that he's been. You ever going to bring it back to Michigan?
I think that's the first time somebody's ever asked me that question. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. For me, it's just like when I get to write, I get to travel. I haven't done a whole lot of traveling yet in my life, outside the country and whatnot. So for me, it serves as like I can, even though I'm physically in Michigan, I can jump to another state or another country and spend a little bit of time there without actually being there. So I'd say, yeah, it's definitely in the realm of possibility that I will be writing a book based in Michigan. But for me, I just love to travel mentally.
Well, I want a story where,
eventually.
This is my pitch to you, James Michels. Jimmy the M comes out of Michigan. He knows this street. He knows these streets. He knows those stores. He knows those people. The people that you live with, your friends, your family, your neighbors. Of course, you're going to have to ask them permission because there have been stories like that where they kind of change the first initial or they change the name slightly. Hey, that's about me, isn't it? Is that the way you really think about me? Is that how you think about me? Huh? No, but you could write stories about the people in your neighborhood, the people that you live with. And man, I don't know. It seems like that would be the easiest thing rather than to write about something that I've only read about or seen in a movie or seen pictures of, or you can look up anything on the internet. I've been to New Orleans. I don't know a lot about New Orleans, but what I do know, I've been there, been to LA. I've been all over this country. I haven't been outside the country either. I'm with you on that, unless you count the Conch Republic when Key West seceded from the Union for 2 days. I was in Key West on those 2 days back in the 80s. I was a kid, but still, I mean, you travel in your mind, but isn't it easier to write about places that you know, or is it, much better for you? Is it a better experience if you're writing about places that you don't know, that you have to research?
I think that I like that experience better because, again, I get to learn new things about places that I just would love to see. So, yeah, in a way, it just kind of fulfills my creative, my fantasies, and it makes me even look forward more to going to these places and seeing them and kind of seeing, like, and then it's also a challenge for myself. Like, okay, when I go there, it's like, whoa, like, how was I on the spot, or did I totally miss it and nobody picked that up? I'll figure that out when I get there. But I don't know, nothing really happened where I'm from.
But it does. But it does. I've been doing this podcast enough to know that everyone has a story. You're born. As soon as you're born, you start reeling in those experiences. And then what you do with those experiences is what makes you a person, what makes you a part of the community, a part of society. When you were growing up, you said that you really weren't much of a writer. What did you do when you were a kid in school?
Let's see. When I was in school, I was kind of just not the everyday kid. I hung out with the nerds. I'll say that.
Okay.
I spent with everybody. I wasn't bullied or picked on or anything like that. I wasn't excluded from anything. I had a pretty good childhood growing up. Nothing out of the ordinary, average middle class. Raised, and both my parents were around and married, and they separated when I grew up. But after that, but before then, yeah, so I don't know. I just kind of just like to stay in my own head, though. I knew that much about myself. I really like to stay inside my own head and kind of put myself in other stories, if that makes sense. Like, there'd be like a TV show that I just followed strongly, and I would just kind of play act like I was an additional character in that show. So yeah, I spent a lot of my childhood just kind of in my own head.
Well, you say
and there were a couple instances.
Good.
Huh? I'm sorry. There were a couple instances early on that I didn't pick up on, where I think I was kind of destined to become a writer. When I was a teenager, I actually started writing a book, but I never finished it. It was just kind of one of those, things I started writing, and 3 weeks later I said, this is stupid. When I got older and I was writing what would become Ice Rising, I remembered that specific moment. I said, I can't give up again. I already did that. I can't do that again. Another time was when I was in high school. We had just read that book, The Outsiders. Have you read that book?
Oh, yeah. S.E. Hinton. Fantastic. I read the book because I had to read it in high school. And then, of course, I saw the movie. Ralph Macchio, before he was the Karate Kid, changed my life. Of course, I'm Daniel. So when he became the Karate Kid, Daniel-san. Okay? But go ahead. Continue.
Of course. And so what was the assignment? The assignment was to write the next chapter in the book. Like, the book's over, but write an additional chapter. I said, I can do anything I want. They said, yeah. And I wrote it, and I got an A on it, and it was actually one of my favorite assignments ever. Well, but again, it's just that thing that maybe you don't pick up on at the beginning, in the beginning of your life, and then just later on, you kind of think back to it and you think, whoa, like that was a huge, not like the opposite of a red flag.
No, that is a great exercise, because that's a fantastic book. And now, what part? There's so many characters that you could have taken. One of the Socs, one of the Greasers. You could have taken Johnny, Soda Pop. Any of the characters, and kind of fleshed them out and gone further with them. Patrick Swayze's character. What would he be doing? Rob Lowe's character. Where did you go? Do you remember what you ended up doing on the assignment?
So what I hated about, I love The Outsiders. But Dallas Winston was one of my favorite characters. Him and Two Bit and what was the oldest brother's name? Daring.
Daring, yeah, it was that was Patrick Swayze's character, right? Daring.
Yeah. I just kind of felt like Dally, he didn't get the recognition I believe he deserved. So in the chapter I wrote, I actually had Ponyboy do the eulogy at Dallas's funeral and let everybody know who had this judgment about Dallas, that he was just total punk. And Ponyboy is up there and explaining to everybody, listen, here's who this guy was for me. So in my book, he's a hero. Say what you want to say about him.
That's fantastic. So, see?
That's what I did.
Well, that's playing in somebody else's sandbox. And that's something that has been happening. You know, we're talking about Marvel. You know, a lot of these things weren't created by the original creators. That's somebody else playing in their sandbox. Like Star Wars, who is it? Jon Favreau took the story and made the Mandalorian. What an incredible series to play in somebody else's sandbox. You played in S.E. Hinton's sandbox. Now, once people start your books, you know, they need to be read. They're begging to be read. If you took the time to write them, somebody should be reading them. And once they read them, then this little thing called fan fiction, you know, and I see that you're on TikTok, you're on the Twitter, you're on the Instagram. Okay, you have your social media. But what some people do with the social media is take stories that are out there and kind of, you know, put their own little spin on them. And this is where your stories start to have a life of their own, and they start to grow. And then you're like, wow, I like what he did with that. And then you write your story, and then they write their story. And of course, it's your intellectual property, so they can't make any money off of that. But you can, you know, you can be inspired by the fans out there. Oh my goodness. This could just grow and grow. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for that, James Michels?
Love it. That's like the ultimate, that is the ultimate form of not flattering, but just admiration and adoration of something is when something that starts off in somebody's head becomes so big. I mean, look at Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. I mean, people now are still talking about like, well, if I was Aragorn, I would have done this, or why didn't Sauron do this? And they talk about all this different stuff. I just watched a YouTube video of what would have happened if, you know, Gandalf got the ring, or if Sauron actually did get the ring. You know, like, here's what would happen. It'd be horrible. It's like, whoa, like the whole Gandalf got the ring. It would be worse than if the other guy got it. I was like, whoa, that is so dark. But it didn't happen. And actually, none of it ever happened. But we're just thinking about it as if it did. I mean, just look at like Star Wars. That started off in somebody's head. And now it's almost like it happened. Look at the Avengers movies. That's almost a historical event. You know, you almost think, you know what? I didn't see John for a while. Did he get snapped out of existence? I feel like he got snapped out of existence. I didn't talk to him for about 5 years, right? Right? Thanos snapped him out of existence. That's why I didn't see him. You know, no, it's like the ultimate form is when, you know, just if I write this book and it just becomes so huge, other people say, man, if I was Johnny Carlo, I would do this. Or if I was Alexander Lincoln, I would do that. And I could just be sitting there thinking, wow, like, this is a conversation we're having right now. Like, this is amazing that somebody else can just think that hard about what you spent so much time, you know, day after day thinking about, that they're sitting there for hours thinking of just maybe something they would do different, but they love the story so much. You know, it's just, yeah, I would love that. I would absolutely love it.
Oh, I do enjoy the fandom. I get to DJ at a lot of the Comic-Cons here in the Arkansas area. And when I go, there's always a nerd fight. Well, actually, Luke hand fired first, and that was changed in the silver edition of the Star Wars trilogy. And do you think that Lucas was originally thinking of a trilogy, or did Star Wars, the original one that became A New Hope, did that do so well that he said that his producers said, hey, let's make a couple more. Let's make at least one more. Was it originally a trilogy like Ice Rising, or like it started in Life's Dark Corners, the Ballad of Johnny Carlo? When you were writing that short story about Johnny Carlo, did you know that it was going to become a full-length book? Or did you think that that little short story was, hey, that's about all I have for Johnny Carlo? Bam.
You know, when I wrote the Ballad of Johnny Carlo, I didn't realize that, and this was my second book. Now, when I write, I shoot from the hip. I have no idea where I'm going to go. And it's actually interesting that you mentioned Stephen King, because he actually writes the same way. I remember him saying that somebody got mad at him because of the ending that he wrote for Cujo, and they said, "Listen, I don't write the news; I just report it." That's brilliant. With the Ballad of Johnny Carlo, I didn't think I would sit there and end up writing a 500-page book that would take me 15 months, and it's my second go at writing a book. But 15 months later, after spending all that time shooting from the hip, it's done. 500 pages long, full length, crazy. And the next book I'm writing is probably going to even be longer, because I'm 200 pages into that one so far, and I've just touched the surface.
Well, you say shooting from the hip, James Michels. Is there an outline? Is there an idea? Do you write anything on paper, or is just page after page? You start typing and you're possessed, a demonic possession, angelic possession, some kind of a muse. Is there a muse? Do you have a name for it when you start typing?
His name's Tony. He's pretty cool.
So what? Hey, in The Shining, Tony, red rum. No, don't do it to me, man. Because Danny had Tony. No, it can't be Tony. Stop it, man. That movie affected me. I was 11 years old when I first saw that movie. Way too young to see The Shining, but that's a whole nother story. So Tony, is that the actual name, or is that a flippant name that you just gave it? What's that?
I just gave it just off the top of my head.
Oh, you got me. You got me good. James Michels not here.
I may set, so when I'm writing a story, I may set a few golden rules for myself. Like, okay, no matter what, this character is not going to die. Or no matter what, these two end up together. And aside from that, man, there are no rules. There are no rules whatsoever. Things can change. There's been a million times where the ending has changed for me. Ballad of Johnny Carlo actually started. It starts off with the prologue, and most of the story is kind of everything that led up to this moment, like Fight Club, when like the first scene when Brad Pitt's got the gun to his head. He's like, how do you end up in that situation? Well, we're about to find out, kids.
You're not supposed to talk about that.
Like, you're right. I broke the rule.
But okay, even that. Go ahead.
I actually broke two rules. I broke rule number 1 and 2. I love that movie. Anyway, with so the Ballad of Johnny Carlo kind of starts off at the end, but as I'm writing the book, the premise of the end, like the atmosphere and the events that were going to lead up to it, changed. So it was. I'd like to say how, but of course I don't want to ruin it for any of the future readers of the book. So, but anybody that has read the book and fell in love with it and is dying to know, they can always hit me up on my website. My email's on there, and they can say, okay, so what were you kind of intending to have it go toward, and why did it change? And I'd love to explain it.
I mean, but that was the subplot of Misery, is that James Caan's character killed off Misery, so Kathy Bates' character got all upset about it, and no, you can't kill my Misery. Bam, bam, I'm going to get all mad at you. These characters, John Carlo could be a very beloved character, and what is it? The first character. Oh, Alexander Lincoln. Which one is going to be your go-to? Which one is your Ethan Hunt? Which one is your James Bond? Which one is your character that's going to be flowing in and out throughout the different books there, James Michaels? Or do you even know? Is your demonically possessed fingers? They haven't told you yet. There, where are the? Is that going to be the main character? Is that your Luke Skywalker?
That's another great question. I love this podcast. This is fun. There's a lot of different questions I'm getting. So let's see with Johnny Carlo. He actually does make an appearance in the book I'm writing that takes place before the events of the Ballad Johnny Carlo, but he's not the main character. So it's not a prequel. It's a totally different thing. It's kind of like Sin City. Where have you seen Sin City?
Oh, come on! Yes.
Where Bruce Willis's character's in the same bar that Clive Owen's character's in, and it's like, hey, don't worry, we'll get to Clive Owen's story later. Here's him right now. We'll get to him. Don't worry. So I kind of have that going with that universe. Well, the Alexander Lincoln. I mean, it's fake autobiographical. The whole series follows him with a couple scenes that jumps to somebody else's point of view. Very rare. It's like one time per book. And so, yeah, it just depends on the kind of person you want to follow. If you're a fan of like Walter White, Breaking Bad, who, a bright person who does questionable things, but there's a party that understands why he's doing what he's doing, but you can't always condone it. But you just watch as the events unfold and he becomes more and more diabolical of a character. If you like that, Ice Rising is for you. If you like the anti-hero who, he's the lovable bad guy, he's got enough morality where you can definitely root for him and see where he goes, and you like to follow him, you enjoy him, then yeah, Ballad Johnny Carlo would definitely be more of your shtick. It just depends on the reader. Maybe you'll love them both. I know I do.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where you're going to go. Is that going to be a through character for your whole series throughout your life, or can you even predict that? Now, you were talking about Walter White. Yeah, that's a character that, and I'm spoiling Breaking Bad. So if you don't want to hear about this, Walter White originally, he had good intentions. He had a good reason for doing what he did. But then as the seasons go through, as time progresses, he's getting in too deep. Does he have to keep doing this? Probably not. There's probably easier ways he could have gone about things, but all right. I did look at your Instagram, and I like that you had the Squidward was one of your, let's see, 1, 2, 3, maybe about 10 panels in. Squidward is your protagonist, and you send a boulder right over that protagonist. Are you always going to kick your protagonist's butt in your stories?
Out.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I like to keep their lives stressed out.
Job, man, that is like biblical. It's Job getting his butt whipped by God and still staying true to his character, still staying true, not to get too biblical. Man, look, I know we've talked probably for an hour. I'm having a good time. And the reason this is a good podcast is because I'm genuinely interested in you, my man. And, I get to learn about what makes James Michaels tick. And that's the secret sauce, is I really want to know about you and how did you write 5 stories, man, in the past 5 years? That's prolific. That means if you keep at this pace, and there's no telling, you'll end up with what, 50 books by the time you leave this mortal coil? Hopefully more, maybe more.
Let's see. I mean, I don't plan on checking out till I'm well into my hundreds.
Perfect.
So by that point, this is not something I'm going to retire from. I don't see myself quitting this ever. So, oh, geez.
Well, I mean, that's another thing is I'm listening to science podcasts.
I mean, dude.
They're starting to treat.
I watched James Patterson.
Go ahead.
I watched James Patterson do an interview where he was in his office and he was showing the interviewer just like all these different manuscripts, these thick manuscripts of all these different books that he's writing. And then he's also got drawers with file cabinets of folders of different stories that he's got. And it's like, and the guy's in his like, he's like about 70. He's like in his late 60s now. He's got over 200 books. And I'm thinking, I've only got 5 so far, 6th one on the way. And he's got me by about 38, 39, 40 years. I can only imagine how much I can get done in that span of time.
So what you're saying is life is a race. Life is always a contest. You have to win. Is that, are you ambitious? Are you driven? Are you driven to write another 195 books?
Well, I'm competitive with myself, so with like a person like James Patterson, I'm not going to say I'm going to write more books than him, but I can look at James Patterson and say, wow, like, okay, that just fired me up. I want to like, just do that. Like, I want to have that. I want to have like, well, I shoot from the hip, so I won't have file cabinets of different stories. But I want to get to that level. I want to get like that prolific, right? And have like hundreds of books out there with my name on there. And people see it and stuff and like billboards and stuff. And, eventually like my last name will be pronounced the way it's supposed to be pronounced. You pronounced it correctly, by the way. It is Michels. And, maybe that's like my hidden goal is for everybody to say, no, it's not Michels. It's Michels.
Fantastic.
He's big now.
Yes. I mean, hey, it is James Michels, but I guess is it French? Because it could be Michel.
And actually, from what I was told, my name is originally French, was Michels. It was anglicized to Michels.
Perfect. All right, man. Look, I do hope that you live to your mid to late 100s. And with science the way it is right now, I just started a podcast on bats. If bats, they are resistant to their immunities are resistant to all these diseases. They never grow old. They never, they stay young until they die. And if proportionally they were our size, we could well live into our 200s. So science is going to catch up. It's going to start treating age as a disease, and we're going to find the cure. And then author James Michels can write forever and ever and ever. Fantastic, man. What's the main character of if you can spoil it a little bit, what's the main character of the next book that you that you're writing? Who's the guy?
It's actually a few different people. Mainly Emilio Oro and his nephew Luis Oro. In the Ballad, Johnny Carlo works for one of the 5 mafia families, the Argento crime family. Then in the Ballad, Johnny Carlo, it's mentioned that the Argento family had gone to war with the Oro family. This next book is actually a family and the events that led up to their war with the Argento crime family. So it's going to center around the boss, Emilio, his brothers, Roberto and Giuseppe, who are also the underboss and consigliere of his family. And Luis is Roberto's son, and he's basically the one they're grooming to one day head the family.
Well, when I was a kid and into my 20s, I was a prolific reader. Do you have audiobooks? Because now when I say I read a book, it's always in my ear. Have you read your books on tape, or are they available out there?
Not yet, but I'm actually going to be working on that next year.
Do it, man, because you'll be more apt to have me as a listener. I'll get them on Audible, or I'll buy them from your website. And your website is jamesmichelsbooks.com. I'll put that in the show notes to make sure people know where to find you, where to contact you, and all about your books, man. Your books are available on Amazon. Anything else you want to tell the people? Give some shout outs as we wind this thing down?
Yes. As you said, all my books are available on Amazon for paperback, Kindle, and Kindle Unlimited. Gotta give love to that. I love Kindle Unlimited.
So does my wife.
Follow me on social media. Can follow me. I'm sorry.
So does my wife. She's got her Kindle.
Yeah. Also, all my social media plugs. TikTok, you can follow me at James Real Mike. You can follow me on Twitter at James Real Mike. You can follow me on Facebook at James the Real Mike. You can follow me on Instagram at James E. Michels. And then you can follow me on YouTube at James Michels Books.
Fantastic.
So,
man.
And anybody that wants to hit me up personally, of course, you can go on to jamesmichelsbooks.com. My email address is on there. So anybody that kind of wants to get a hold of me, ask me questions, whatever, feel free. I always love to talk to my readers.
Yeah, ain't no whatever. Any directors out there, big time movie producers want to get at James Michels? He's open to it, okay? Bring your big bag of money. In fact, bring 2 big bags of money because, James Michels got a family he's got to feed, okay? There's no starving artist over there. You got to, my goodness, it's a lot. It's a lot to put yourself out there in this entertainment business, in the creative arts, because is it worth it, monetarily? Or do you have to do it because that thing in your head needs to get out there on paper and get sent out to the world, right?
Oh, definitely. As a writer, I believe for me, writing is my purpose for being here, of course, is to, I have a wife, I have kids, so I definitely have purpose there. But my individual purpose for me is being a writer. I think that's what I'm destined to give to society. I think everybody has that particular purpose aside from, their love and their relationships. What else can they give to society on their own? That I can't stop. At this point, I can't stop.
James Michels, we can't do this all by ourselves. So give some shout outs to people that are helping you out along the way. I know that somebody put us together on this podcast. I'm very grateful for that. So give some shout outs to people that have helped you along the way.
Definitely. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Keegan, who has done all the covers for my books. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Scott, who is one of my best friends, and he's also my editor. And that doesn't stop him from being completely dead honest with me when it's needed to, and he's really helped me out. And of course, I want to give thanks to my wife, who is my biggest fan. She is, the rock, my foundation for everything I've become. Without her, I have nothing. And I want to give a shout out to my kids when they see this in the future, that just them being there was one of my biggest inspirations for me to be a bigger and better person every single day.
That is fantastic. I don't want this to be the last time that we talk. As time progresses, if you want to come back and just, have a check-in with us and see what's going on in the world of James Michels. I always finish these things off with last words for the people. This could be words to live by, something you heard a long time ago, maybe a mantra that you wake up with every morning, or whatever pops into your head at this moment in time. James Michels, give the last words for the people.
Find that purpose in your life that makes you wake up ready, not tired.
Well, there you have it, party people. James Michels, what a good dude, man. I enjoyed picking his brain. Everybody's got a story. And this guy not only has a story, but he writes those stories down and he gives them to the world. And I say give very loosely. You can purchase them on Amazon. The man's got a family. He's got to feed his family. And he's got these stories about gangsters, bang, bang, gangsters in California, in New Orleans. He's got Alexander Lincoln and Johnny Carlo, Johnny the Surgeon Carlo. You want to read more about that. And I hope that they get optioned and they get made into, of course, I want to hear the audiobook, because reading for me, I'm driving around all day long. I like a good book in my ear. I listen to podcasts. I listen to audiobooks. Lately, that's how I'm consuming most of my media is either making podcasts or listening to podcasts. That's how I get my kicks. So I'm looking forward to hearing your fantastic books, James Michels, and I hope you read them too. You know, it's nice when the author reads them because you get that inflection that only James Michels can put to his characters, to his stories. So James Michels, I want you to read your books. Yeah, I know I'm asking a lot. We hardly know each other, but we spent about an hour together, you know, just chit-chatting, shooting the breeze, learning about each other, learning about you mostly. And I like that. All right, my man, keep on doing what you do, James Michels. Thank you so much for being on the What Makes You Famous podcast. That's it for this edition of What Makes You Famous. Now, if you, yes, you, my loyal listener, if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to give me a call, 501-470-6386, or email keysdan@aol.com. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.